Have you ever thought, is it possible to increase the life of my BMW N54 Wastegate rattle problem? It is possible. In this video, I'm going to give you a couple tips on how to do that. The first thing that I would recommend doing is you're going to upgrade the tune to a higher PSI tune, which will make it so that the wastegates won't open as often. In fact, it won't even open in normal driving conditions. As long as you don't hit above the target boost level, the wastegate will not open, which will keep the bushings lasting longer because they're not being used. This wastegate is naturally open. As soon as you start the vehicle, you'll hear a little bit of a rattle, and that's when this valve begins to shut. Once it's shut and at idle for a few seconds, you should not hear it rattling. If you do hear it rattling, usually there's either an adjustment problem or the bushing and arm are already worn out. To increase the boost, you're going to need to download the MHD Wedge Stage 2 Plus tune and do the required supporting mods, which is an upgraded intercooler and a aftermarket charge pipe with an upgraded blow-off valve. It's going to really help if you avoid some rebuild kits that are aftermarket. Some of them have a much narrower shaft here, and the bushing is much narrower to match that shaft. The problem with those is they have much less surface area where it's going to wear out much quicker. So you want to avoid that one. There's some of them like this one. I like to avoid this style. You see how it's got a lot of extra play in here? I like to avoid that one because what you're looking at is if this bushing wears out some, this valve right here could bind up from it being worn out. It could catch on to the turbine housing. I've seen it happen in other models, but I haven't seen it happen on the BMW, but I wouldn't use this one anyway. The best way to try and fix this one is to cut that off, take this, machine that down, and then put that back on, then weld it. And that's kind of a lot more work than I think is worth. You may as well just buy a quality kit. We have these kits available if you want to buy them, so I'll link those in the description box as well. One thing that you need to make sure is done correctly, when you go to install these, you need to make sure that you push them in the bushing correctly. I've had some people that have used a hammer, and just don't do that because you'll end up bending or smashing the bushing, and then the arm is not going to go back in. I've had some people use a press but do it incorrectly. The way to correctly install this part is that you have to set it in the turbine housing and press here and stop, press here, stop, and do it on all four corners. Once it starts to feel like it's comfortably going in and straightens out, then it's good to go and you can press it all the way down in the turbine housing. If it starts to make noise like it's creaking as you're pushing it in, usually that means you're bending the bushing and you need to replace it at that point. I've had some people that have tried to resize them, and if you try and resize that after you've already bent it, usually you'll just have another problem later. When this starts to heat up, they start to swell. As a result of that, then it can cause a binding issue. I'll show you a good example of one that was pushed in, then resized, and has a binding issue. This one didn't really matter as much because where it starts to bind is right here, and this valve doesn't open that far. But you can see how stiff it is trying to move it. And then once it reaches past that point, now it moves freely like it's supposed to. But after you get past this point, it's binding up. So make sure you do the repair correctly. Otherwise, you're just going to cause yourself a lot of headaches. It's important to have a kit that has these two pieces welded together because I've sold about 900 to 1,000 of these, and the problem that I had out of some, though it was kind of rare, these are just the people that have told me, that on occasion the valve would separate from the washer. Now, I installed a set on my car 2 years ago. I didn't weld it or anything. I haven't had any problems. But on some of them that I got back from warranty for the turbo issue, some of them you could tell they were starting to separate. I just decided to go and buy a TIG welder to weld them all up. It was a $3,500 expense, but it was worth it because it's not going to come apart again and it's going to increase the longevity of the product. I went ahead and just weld all these on the back side too, just to be safe, to ensure that you won't have a problem out of this piece either. If you've already done the repair on the wastegate system and you're still hearing a rattle, this needs to be adjusted properly. I have a video on that topic, so I'm not going to show you how to do that here, but you can look that one up. It's called How to Adjust Wastegate Arm or something like that for BMW N54. On these turbos, the valve is naturally open and only closes when the car starts up. So it's normal to hear a little bit of a rattle at startup, but should go away after a few seconds. If you want to learn more tips on increasing the durability of these turbos, I recommend that you watch the video that I posted, Why N54 Upgraded Turbos Will Fail.